Okay, we are back again with another list. Yeah, this one kind of fell out of the sky for me, so I figured I had to look at it when Metal Hammer has put out the 20 greatest prog metal bands of all time. And if we scroll down a little bit, looking at this thumbnail, we can already kind of suss out a few of the bands that will be on this list. Looks like we've got some Dream Theater on here. Looks like we've got some Rush, some Meshuggah on here, some Mastodon. So yeah, let's see what this is all about and see how much I agree with it. We'll just kind of go through the initial, hey, look at all the things that we know about them. Let's dive in. And number 20, Savatage. Interesting choice, Savatage. Now, I believe Savatage is what actually eventually became the Trans-Siberian Orchestra, if my memory is correct in that sense. It might not be. I might be completely wrong there. But I believe that's who they are. Number 19, I am not familiar with at all. Aishahan. Interesting. Might have to check those guys out. Never heard about those guys. Number 18, Cynic. Okay. Yeah, I agree. Their last album from 2019. 2021, I think it was. A great album. And their whole discography is quite good. Quite good. I know a lot of people that love Cynic, myself being included. Great individual. Great one on here. Okay, number 17, Fate's Warning. Yeah, I can't dispute that. Number 17. Greatest prog metal moment, Exodus. I mean, that's okay. I guess I can agree to that. Continuing on the prog metal in the 80s and even into the 90s and, beyond. Awaken the Guardian was kind of really, really big. Can't say no about that. I think that's a great historical band to be on here. Let's see here. Number 16, Leprous. Good to see Leprous on here. I know a lot of people really, really love Leprous, and myself, again, being included on here. I think that they were potentially the next big wave of progressive metal, and I feel like their last handful of albums have just kind of been lackluster in my opinion. I think they've gone a little too mellow and kind of lost the big teeth that I loved from Leprous. But still, can't say no about that. I think that was a great addition to this list. Number 15, we've got Coheed and Cambria. Okay, I mean, I'll give it to them. I think that Coheed and Cambria is much more of like a pop conglomerate, like more of a pop metal band than a progressive metal. I mean, I can understand why the progressive metal, because of the big overarching Amory War storyline that they have going on with that. That's fine. But I've never, even though I've seen them a couple of times in concert, I still never really have connected to their music. Now everybody loves Welcome Home and 4 and 5. And I'm kind of digging what they're putting down within the newer, their newer albums. But I can kind of take or leave. It's bringing progressive metal more into the mainstream. So I can at least give them that. Okay, number 14, Enslaved. I'm not as familiar with Enslaved, but they're fine. Okay, number 13, Iron Maiden. Okay. I guess that they've got their moments, like the big prog epics from like Seventh Son of a Seventh Son, I think is kind of like the big one. As well as like Number of the Beast and whatnot. But I don't know. I'm not a big fan of Iron Maiden, if I'm being perfectly honest. I know a lot of people that love them. But I always felt like they were a little too 80s for me. But I mean, they're still good. Not quite sure if they belong at number 13, but there you go. Number 12, Symphony X. This I can agree with. This guy I can get on top of. I love Symphony X. Really great stuff. Greatest prog moment, I would agree, is the Odyssey. The album and the track at like 24 minutes. Great power metal stuff from Symphony X. Yeah. You can't go wrong with Symphony X. I agree fully to this spot and this band. Number 11, Gojira. Yeah, good French stuff on here. Love they're very heavy. Very, very heavy. Love how like drony and like big and heavy it is. Okay, going to go to page number 2. Next page. Let's go. Into the top 10. I'm glad that they kind of split it up between, from number 20 to number 11. And now we're going into top 10. Let's see. What do we got? Number 10, Between the Buried and Me. That's okay. See, for me, Between the Buried and Me is like top 5. They're one of the few one of the big bands that got me into progressive metal and especially brutal metal. The overarching concepts of their albums, the big storylines that they have. But what does it for me in the end is those meaty riffs. We've got Lay Your Ghost to Rest. We've got The White Walls. We've got Ants of the Sky. Like so many, so good tracks from Between the Buried and Me. Easily, they're in my top 5 of progressive metal bands. All right, number 9. What do we got for number 9? Devin Townsend. Good to see my man, the Canadian Heavy Devi, right on here. Greatest prog moment of the Mighty Masturbator. Yeah. I mean, I would put Deep Peace or Kai on there, but yeah, I mean, Devin Townsend deserves to be on here just with his amount of work and like the difference of work on here. Absolutely can't say no. That's a good spot. I would put him higher if I'm being honest, but that's where we are. Number 8, Queensryche. Much like Fate's Warning, good historical band. Great historical band for Queensryche, kind of keeping prog alive in the 80s and keeping like almost trailblazing the progressive metal movement with Fate's Warning. Really good to see that they're on this list. And number 8 is a serviceable. I would agree to number 8. That's yeah. All right, what do we got for number 7? Meshuggah. Okay, absolutely. Yeah, pioneering like the really big death metal stuff, like the heavy stuff. You don't get heavier than Meshuggah. Like Meshuggah is probably like the heaviest of heavy. Obzen is probably my favorite album from them, but you really can't go wrong. They are just brutal. Yeah, absolutely. And I agree to the place. I think number 7 is a very good serviceable spot for them. Number 6, Mastodon. Absolutely. Some good sludge metal in that sense. Some really good concepts for most of their albums as well. Love these guys. These guys are great. I wonder what their greatest prog moment is. The Tsar. Yeah, okay. I think that they've kind of superseded the Tsar with a couple of their other tracks like Jaguar God, but no, this is good. Mastodon, yeah. And number 6 is a very good placement for them as well. I would agree to that. All right, number 5, Voivod. Again, French Canadian. Great stuff. Good to see these guys on here. I think 5 might be a little high. I would put them kind of, within like the top 10 to 15. But yeah, again, in the late 80s, early 90s, these guys were keeping that really experimental, really over the top, and really like powerful prog in the focus. For those that loved a lot of teeth, sharp teeth, you're going to love these guys. Voivod was 100, like absolutely great. All right. Now that we're in the top 5, Porcupine Tree at number 4. That's a take. I'm not quite sure if I agree with that. And I love Porcupine Tree. Absolutely love Porcupine Tree. But I wouldn't necessarily consider them progressive metal. Like, definitely they have progressive metal tendencies, especially on, as they say here, Fear of a Blake Planet. But also The Incident. Pretty much everything from, well, I shouldn't say everything, but like, In Absentia has some metal moments. Deadwing has some very metal moments, and then straight up into Fear of a Blank Planet and The Incident. But I wouldn't necessarily call them a progressive metal act. So I'm not quite sure if I agree with that. I'm not quite sure I would agree with that. But I mean, they are very much like the poster child of modern progressive rock. So there you go. Not sure if I agree with that. Okay. Moving on to number 3, we have Rush. Interesting. I would agree to this. Like, it's so interesting because, like, I might not necessarily agree that Porcupine Tree is Rush. Sorry, they aren't Rush. Porcupine Tree aren't metal, but I can understand Rush being metal, even though I don't know if they quite have that same kind of metal teeth that Porcupine Tree would. Yeah, now that I'm thinking about it, I'm not quite sure if I would agree to that, but because I'm trying to think, like, have they had any, like, straight up metal tracks? They definitely have some really hard rock tracks, but I don't know if they ever really got to the level of metal. Yeah, I think that's something that we can think about a little bit. But I do love the fact that they are talking about Clockwork Angels, which I think gets overlooked. I think that that is just a brilliant, brilliant album. And, you know, they went out with a bang. So, yeah, glad to see this on here. Okay, number 2, Tool. Absolutely, can't go wrong with that. I agree. Absolutely agree. Lateralis, 100%. Yeah, I mean, they really did redefine progressive metal in the 90s. You know, kind of like almost being a post-grunge band while grunge was getting its start, you know? Like, if you look at, you know, the Undertow back in, like, the early 90s, that was when grunge was really getting off the ground, and they were almost being the post-child of that movement before that movement even really got super, super big. So yeah, you don't really get more progressive than that. And then following it up with, you know, Enema, and then Lateralis, and then 10,000 Days. You can't go wrong. You really can't go wrong. Number 2, absolutely, I agree to that. Which means number 1, that has to be Dream Theater. And there they are. Yep, Dream Theater. And I 100% agree. 100% agree that Dream Theater is the number 1 progressive metal band because they redefined it to the point where it became its own genre. You know, even though Queensryche and Fate's Warning and Voivod were doing their things in the 80s, and I feel like Dream Theater with Images and Words and Awake in the 90s, and then Scenes from Memory in the very late 90s and going beyond. Yeah, I think that these guys really brought progressive metal into the forefront. If there wasn't Dream Theater, we wouldn't have a lot of the bigger standout tracks and artists that we have today. So yeah, number 1, 100%. Can't say no to that. So the only band that was not on here that I'm surprised wasn't was Haken. I mean, we had Leprous, but we didn't have Haken. I'm also surprised that Arion wasn't on this list, but I don't know. Overall, a very good list. Overall, a very serviceable list. You know, there was a few bands on here that I kind of hemmed and hawed over, and I'm not quite sure if they even really belong on here. But, like, there wasn't anything that I, like, very strongly disagreed with. Like, even Porcupine Tree, I'm like, I can see it. I can understand it. But, yeah, I am shocked that Haken wasn't on here, because I still consider Haken to be, like, one of the big pioneers of progressive metal within the 2010s. We didn't really have too many big new acts from the progressive metal scene outside of Haken. Like, Haken's the biggest one. So I'm shocked to see that they weren't on here. But everything else, yeah, pretty serviceable. Very good list. And that's all I've got for you guys today. I hope you guys like this list review. I hope you guys like this list reaction. It's been a fun time. If there's a list out there that you want me to react to, if there's one that you want me to do one of these two, comment down below. Let me know about that. If you have a link to it, that's even better. And yeah, I've been really, really enjoying these. Hope you guys have been enjoying it too. And that's all I've got for you guys today. Thank you so, so much for watching. As always, you guys are definitely the best. And until next time, notes out.